Today, we're digging into a really powerful analysis by Dr. Julius Kirimi Sindi. It pulls back the curtain on Kenya's inequality crisis, and his argument is pretty stark. This isn't some accident. It's a deliberate, man-made architecture designed to work this way.
So let's start with a picture Dr. Sindi paints. Imagine you're at a wedding, but this is a strange one. The groom, it's your tax money, 68 shillings out of every 100 you pay. And the bride? A Kenyan bank. And get this, you, the taxpayer, you're not just a guest. You're the one officiating, and you're the one paying for the honeymoon. Yeah, it's a wild image, right? But it's meant to make you stop and ask, what on earth is going on here? And if you think that wedding sounds crazy, let's ground it in some cold, hard reality. Just look at this number. A tiny group of 125 individuals in Kenya hold more wealth than over 42 million of their fellow citizens. Let that sink in. 125 people have more than 3/4 of the entire population. This isn't just a wealth gap, it's a canyon. And that brings us to what Dr. Sindi calls the unholy matrimony, a kind of financial incest that sits right at the heart of the economic system. It's the key to understanding how this level of extreme inequality isn't just possible, but actually incredibly profitable for a select few. So this is the big question, isn't it? If our public taxes are getting married off to private bank profits in this bizarre ceremony, who's the matchmaker? Who's arranging this whole circus? And who really benefits? Well, here's exactly how it works. It's a cycle, a perfectly closed loop. Step 1. The government borrows a ton of money from commercial banks. Step 2, it turns around and collects taxes from you, me, and everyone else. And then step 3, and this is the kicker, a staggering 68% of that tax money is funneled right back to those very same banks to pay off the debt. Your money is literally being used to generate their profit. And what you end up with is this massive, glaring paradox. On one side, you have the banking sector, which is healthier and more profitable than it has ever been. But on the other side, you have the real economy, the one where most of us live and work, and it's being starved of the cash it desperately needs to grow. I mean, just look at the profits, 262 billion Kenyan shillings in 1 year. We're not just talking about a good year. This is a record smasher, and it's all fueled by being the government's favorite lender. And this, right here, is the heart of that paradox. While those bank profits are soaring to all-time highs, lending to the real economy, to small businesses, to entrepreneurs, to families, has absolutely cratered. It's at a 22-year low. The money isn't flowing out to create jobs and growth. It's just spinning in a circle between the government and the banks. And the irony here is just staggering. You'll hear banks publicly saying they need help to unlock credit. But look at this. Legally, they only need to hold 20% of their assets in cash. Right now, they're holding almost 60%. As Dr. Sindi's analysis puts it, they are literally swimming in cash that they are simply choosing not to lend. Okay, so someone has to be paying the price for this arrangement, right? And it's definitely not the banks. The bill gets handed to ordinary citizens, and it's a heavy one, paid in some very real and very damaging ways. And one of the clearest ways you see this price being paid is in the gender gap. It's incredibly stark. For every 100 shillings a Kenyan man earns, a woman makes just 65. This isn't a side effect. It's baked right into the economic system. That gap gets even wider when you start looking at who actually owns things. Assets, the real foundation of wealth. When it comes to something as critical as agricultural land, women own just a tiny fraction. But here's the part that should really make you stop and think. Despite years of progressive policies, new laws, and all the talk about gender equality, the situation on the ground has actually gotten worse. The number of women without land has jumped. The system isn't just failing to fix the problem, it feels like it's actively making it worse. So let's talk about the trade-offs. That 68% of tax revenue that goes to debt repayment, it just swallows everything else. It's double the entire education budget, and it's a mind-blowing 15 times the health budget. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about schools that don't get built, hospitals that don't get staffed, and opportunities that are lost from millions of people. So you have to ask yourself, as Dr. Sindi does, is this system broken? Or is it working exactly the way it was designed to? His analysis comes to a pretty chilling conclusion. This isn't a series of unfortunate accidents. It is a deliberate architecture. It was built this way. And the blueprints for that architecture, he argues, go way back to the colonial era. That economic system was designed for one purpose and one purpose only: extraction, to take wealth from the many and concentrate it in the hands of the few. The argument is that after independence, that machine was never dismantled. We just changed who was in the driver's seat.
And you can still see that old colonial operating system running today. Land is still concentrated in a few hands. Access to capital still flows through the same narrow channels. The tax system hits the little guy the hardest, while the wealthy find their loopholes. And all the while, as politicians debate taxing bread, billions are just vanishing through illicit financial flows.
Okay, so that is a pretty grim diagnosis. But a diagnosis is not a death sentence. The whole point of understanding how the machine works is so we can figure out how to switch it off. Dr. Sindi argues it's time to move from just analyzing the problem to actively challenging it. So what does that path forward look like? Well, the analysis lays out 4 big, bold demands. First, break that toxic, incestuous cycle between government debt and bank profits. Second, stop just writing policies about women's land rights and actually enforce them. Third, go after the real money, aggressively tax the billions being lost in illicit flows instead of taxing bread. And finally, restructure the national debt instead of letting it bleed the country dry year after year.
And this then becomes a mandate for every single citizen. Start asking your bank tough questions about why they aren't lending to small businesses. Ask your member of parliament why they're voting for budgets that prioritize debt over schools. Support the groups on the ground who are fighting for economic justice. And crucially, share this kind of structural analysis so we can all move the conversation beyond the symptoms and get to the root cause. Which brings us right back to where we started, to that wedding between your taxes and bank profits. Dr. Sindi's entire analysis really boils down to one simple, powerful question for every Kenyan. You're paying for this wedding. Isn't it time to object?
The analysis we've walked through in this explainer is the work and perspective of Dr. Julius Kirimi Sindi. It's important to note that these are his personal views and do not represent any organization he is affiliated with.